Hey, everybody, this is Perch. It's an interesting question, and I'll give you my take on it. I'm curious to get yours. So here's the email. It says, "Dear Perch, right now YouTube has become the dominant media source over things like traditional channels. Yes, there are streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime. That wouldn't have been my second go-to, but okay. Yeah, I mean, HBO, Apple TV, Peacock. I don't know. Pick your poison. Anyway, Hulu, Disney Plus, blah 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 blah. All right. YouTube the dominant. With more people now watching YouTube videos, TikTok videos, and streaming shows as opposed to the old school legacy media. A lot of these videos, as you well know, are critics who are complaining about trailers and movies. And I believe I saw a stat once that said there were actually more videos and more hours of watch time for people critiquing Snow White than actual audience of Snow White. Basically, person here is saying, more people watch videos complaining about Snow White than watched Snow White. In terms of, I'm assuming people and hours, and that's probably true. I mean, who knows? Actually, this probably is something that could be proven out one way or another. But if you took all the videos complaining about Snow White got woke over the last year, I mean, there's a lot. And you tallied them all up, and you tallied all the views for those, and you tallied up the watch time. I mean, it's the thing is, it's not apples to apples, and people, in particular, YouTube commentators, people have channels with millions of views. I mean, I have a friend, yeah, a friend. Anyway, and he's a good, actually, it's Ryan George, and he's got millions of views, right, on his stuff. But he would look at it, or he does look at it of like, look, I'm not, if somebody came up to me, it's like, oh, how do you feel like you're like the new Tom Cruise or Will Ferrell because you're a comedian? It's like, yeah, no, I don't have their money. I don't have their celebrity. I'm doing this stuff. I've got views, but you can't equate millions of views of a pitch meeting video to somebody who, filmed a movie for a year, put it in the box office, charged a ticket price, had a percentage of the film. It's like, they're not the same. They may feel like the same, but you'd be kind of arrogant and foolish. This is coming literally from somebody who does have those millions of views. It's not the same thing. It's the reason why they don't, they call it an e-celebrity and not just a celebrity. But anyway. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you had more hours of watch time. That said, I don't think it's, you're not exactly getting the same thing between Snow White, the movie. And I understand this is a debatable point. People get hot and bothered. It's like the anti woke dog whistle, but here goes anyway. I still maintain it is bizarre, silly to say that a movie that is Snow White should appeal to a 30-year-old man. It's not meant to. It was never meant to. That's not what it's for. Why is that a controversial topic? It confuses me. Look, and by the way, Die Hard was not meant to appeal to a 16-year-old non-binary. I mean, it's not meant for that audience. It's like, anyway, whatever. We've all gotten confused over, like, action movies are for fans of action and fairy tales are for children. And I mean, just, on and on it goes, whatever. Sorry, we've gone off track. What is this bill? Okay, here comes the big question. All right, the big question I want all of you to think about. Some more stuff in here. I'm cutting to the chase. My question is this: do you think movie critics can actually make good movies? Do you think comic book critics can actually make good comic books? The reason I'm asking is this: lots of people on YouTube, these celebrities, e-celebrities, are now making their own comics and their own movies. But why do people think they are going to be successful? There's no real history of critics ever making a successful media product. They can critique it, but they can't make it. What do you think about this? I went down a little bit of the rabbit hole because I read this and I'm like, well, I mean, look, the content is the content. I don't know. But then I got to thinking, like, okay, are there cases where critics have actually made, successful movies? Like, did Siskel and Ebert, did they actually make a successful movie? They have lots of opinions about movies, but did they actually create one? And so I did a little bit. I mean, I went to, my old buddy Chat GPT. I did a little bit of research, and the answer is really no. There wasn't a good example that I could find of a person who was a critic, and maybe all of you, you can find it, who actually became a successful, movie creator, movie director, writer, or comic book creator, minus one. There was one name that stuck out, and I would object a little bit to saying that this person is a massively successful comic creator. And I'm going to give you my logic here real quick before I give you the name, because my logic is, did this person sell lots of books? Are there fans of this person? Absolutely. All right. Does this person have a big social media following? They do. Has this person put up big financial numbers on the board? Do they have the mega sales that would kind of go along with the, you know, with, with their subscriber count or with their follower count? And the answer is no. So the only person I could find in music, movies, and comics that was a critic is Gail Simone, who, now has some level of, stardom, if you will. That's it. Um, can you, so first question to you, is that fair? Can you think of somebody? Let me know. I mean, let me know in the comments below, but from what I can tell, Gail Simone's it. And I don't consider Gail Simone like I mean, Gail Simone is a big two writer on an X-Men title. You could certainly call Gail Simone successful, but even there, Gail Simone has a pretty large social media following. She has a pretty large, for lack of a better word, cult of personality, a group of people who will come in and defend and, hype anything that she does. But what I don't, I mean, but the sales numbers, I would suggest kind of modest. There aren't knock it out of the park sales numbers. There aren't the, Brian Michael Bendis, Tom King upper stratosphere of numbers. And yet from a social media presence, from an e-celebrity perspective, she far outstrips those people in terms of followers. Um, but I think the point, I don't know if this is an exception proves the rule, or, I'll let you all kind of debate and think about that one. Whether you like Gail Simone or not like Gail Simone, does that count or not? But the bigger question is, can critics actually make good films? And my basic thought is, no. I think that there is something about being able to critique and dissect a movie or a comic or whatever it happens to be that is different from the creative process. You can certainly, have both talents, but I think they're separate talents. I think being a critic, doing a bit, or being like in Siskel and Ebert, or the modern day equivalent, the critical drinker, people like that. I think the skill that goes into doing that work, doing the review, being able to kind of pick apart the movie, being able to dissect what's there, I think it's a completely different skill set than then picking up a pen and making a movie. Again, that doesn't mean they can't do it, but I don't think those skills are the same. I think they're different, and so it's kind of like fighting, fighting somebody who can do two really good things. It's like the Michael Jordan effect of, can this person play baseball and do basketball? I don't. That's probably not the best example, but anyway, you could be really good at something. Can you be really good at two things that are related, and do they help each other? And so I think, you do have a lot of people who are critics who are now making their own books or kind of putting their money where their mouth is. And for that, I say, great. I do think there's something good and honorable about, like, look, I'm not just going to bitch about it. I'm going to try it for myself. Good. But I don't have a lot of confidence that these things are going to do amazing. Now, they may, but are we going to be like, when I think about comics and you think about, you had the Chris Claremont and you had the, Mark Miller, and you had the Alan Moores, and you had the Frank Miller, and you had the Brian Michael Bendis, and you had Lumber Hayden, you had Tom King, you had these names that are kind of the bigger marquee names for comics. Um, when do we see a critic get into that zone, or do we? I don't know. That's my question for you. Can critics make good comics? And again, I think the answer is they can. I said no earlier, but let me put some nuance to that. They absolutely can, but it is not a given that they will be good. I don't think just because you're a critic, even a popular critic, I don't think that makes you an amazing creator. I think they're different skills. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.